It's been a long time, and finally, I have decided let me make this podcast episode because I was like, I was supposed to make it like an episode or two episodes back, but I was like, oh, I've not really planned and put things together. Now that I've set things together, I'm like, let's go. We're ready for the project. And first question, I'd say, what does project mean? Yeah, for most people, it's a different meaning that it connotes because of what they use and what their introduction projects per se. Now, for me, project simply means, what exactly is project? I didn't check that. What exactly is project? Wow, lucky for me, I have a dictionary. Let me quickly check what project means. Whoa, wow, what does project mean? Wow, yeah, it's more like sometimes you know the meaning of a word, but then when they're asked to define it, you're stuck for words. You're like, we know project. Yeah, I know that stuff, but what exactly does it mean? I don't exactly know. But it's not like I don't know the meaning of it, but I just can't give you a definition. And that's how project just sounded to me. So I'm with the dictionary and I've opened to project and, now verb, it means, what does a project means? It means a planned, it has multiple definitions, but I'll go with the first one. The first one is a planned piece of work that is designed to find information about something, to produce something new, or to improve something. A research project, a building project. Okay. So I think in this area of expertise, it's for us, it's a planned piece of work that is designed to produce something new. Because we're creating. That's what we're doing. We're creating something new. For those who are investigative journalists, it could be to find information about something, and then for those who maybe scientists or so who are trying to work on a particular um invention or technology, it could be to improve on something. But for us, it is to produce something, to create something. It's a planned piece of work that is designed to produce something. So a project is designed in such a way that it contains all the details that allows us to produce something new. In a project, you have a time frame. Yeah. Like, okay, this project is going to last 1 year, 2 years. Sometimes it crosses boundary in terms of the time it takes, but usually it takes around the time that has been projected to create that thing. Yeah, it takes usually that time that has been created to create that thing. And so for me, since it's planned, since it has a framework, it's easier for me to know what I'm doing. Say, for example, you have a project to create a short story anthology. You know, you need to write 12 to 20 short stories. It's clear. You're like, okay, this is the project I'm working on. Or let's say you're writing a novel. It's clear this is the project you're working on. But as a beginner writer, if you don't have a project you're working on, getting consistent and working on something and improving can be a bit difficult because you don't really have anything that you're like, oh, this is something I'm working on that I need to get done and I need to complete. Yeah. So for me, that's majorly where the idea of projects coming from. So the question is why am I working on the project and why should you work on the project? Yeah, the first thing on working on a project is that it makes accountability easy. Yeah, you can tell, oh, I'm working on this project, so and so time. There's a deadline for it. And the deadline is usually flexible, not all the time, but it's a personal project. But then there's a deadline because we don't want to do a project that takes infinity. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. We don't want to do that kind of project. We want something that has a time to it. So that way we're able to know we have split the work and work towards that project. Also, we want to make it easy for us to be consistent with writing. Yeah, because if you're like, oh, I write, what are you writing? Nothing. I just dabble from here to this. Like, it's really hard. Yeah. And having a project makes it easy to finish work. Yeah. I think there's a magic from finishing work. It's really, really encouraging when we do finish work. Yeah, it's really do encouraging because it feels like we've completed something and then we can create something new. It's unlike when unfinished work, projects that we don't get to finish. Yeah. Someday we'll finish them, but for now, we're just going to do as if those projects don't work and just forget about them for now. But the question is, how long will it take? Yeah, how long will it take first? How long? Okay. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe a day, maybe 2 days. I'll come back to it, obviously. But I'm like, are you really serious that it's a day that's going to take? Because it might take longer. And so for me, I'm looking at projects that are exciting because there are two major criteria I like to consider when setting my goals and when setting projects. One, it has to be exciting. Yeah, it's something I want to work on, something that, challenges me a bit, but not too much that it crushes me. I don't want something completely overwhelming. I want to take it one step at a time. I want to build the strength, the tenacity, both mentally, intellectually, creative wise. Yeah, when we build that tenacity, then we can move on to something bigger, something more challenging. Then we've been forced to handle that next task. But starting out as a beginner writer, we just don't want to take on tasks that are really, really big, such that they they end up crushing our creative spirit instead of what they're supposed to do, encourage us and make us really, really creative. Okay, the other thing is that it has to be exciting. The other thing has to be consistent. Yeah, consistency. I'm setting goals that it's easier for me to be consistent. Not really easy per se, but I want to be able to show up consistently and work on that project over time. Yeah. Because I don't want to just, set up a goal. Let's say I'll say go write 10 hours every day. Yeah, it's exciting, but for some persons, they could be consistent with that. Maybe you probably don't have a full-time job. Writing is your full-time job. That's all you do. That's your. We have to be consistent, yeah, and we have to pick on something that is easier for us to be consistent with. Now, put in the mind that there is nothing bad in starting small. Yeah, there's nothing bad in starting small. The thing is that we want to grow. We want to be consistent. We just don't want to wake up and start writing 5 hours a day. And then tomorrow, or maybe for the next 3 months, we don't even show up. Instead, we want to write 15, 20, 30 minutes, even an hour, and then show up consistently over the next 3 months, rather than 5 hours, 10 hours for 2, 3 days, and then vanish and to be nowhere to be found. Okay, so we're starting small in whatever small might mean for you. Small enough that you don't get to procrastinate. It's small enough that I don't get to move on. Small enough that I don't get to put it off. Small enough that I don't get overwhelmed. Yet I get to create something beautiful. Okay, I'm starting small. And on the next thing, his question is, what did I choose? Yeah, first, what I chose to do a microfiction challenge. I want to write my first 100 pieces of micro stories. Yeah, I'm saying micro stories because even though I'm saying microfiction, I'm like finger personal essays from my own life that are micro. And 100 pieces over the course of 100 days. Now, I could finish it before 100 days, but 100 is more like, the project deadline. Sometimes you get really good at the project deadline. Before that time, you're even done. Half of the deadline, you've used it. But the goal is to write at least one every day for the next 100 days. That's the minimum. Yeah. And what is microfiction? Microfiction is any story that is between not zero. What am I even saying? That is less than 300 words or 300 words. Less than 300 words. Sometimes you could go a bit 301, 320, but 300 words. Less than 300 words. It could be 50, it could be 100, it could be 200 words, it could be 300 words. So the time frame is 100 days. The goal is to write over 100 pieces of micro stories in 100 days. And the theme will vary. Because I want to experiment. I want to go from horror, from literary fiction, from crime, from adventure, action, whatever other genre we have, sci-fi, fantasy, what do they call it, dystopian, yeah, dystopian, and just write and create and explore genres, explore forms from epistolary and poetic prose, and just play around with these things. That's the goal. And when am I starting? I'm starting 21st of April, 2024. Yeah. starting from 21st April 2024. And then the next question we should be asking, because the framework for my project is we're looking at time frame, we're looking at the goal, because we need to know what we need to be. Not all goals are easily measurable, but we want to make it easy for us so that we know, okay, if we're on track or if we're losing, we're outside, we're not on track. Yeah. I want to say outside track, but we're not on track. And I said the time, the goal, the team, and sometimes team is more like the what is the work about. Sometimes you're like, okay, the team could be, I want to write a fantasy novel. Yeah, that's the team. For it could be, I want to write, I want to do a poetry slam. That could be the theme. Or, okay, I want to do a poetry slam, and it could be more specific on motherhood. I want to do a poetry slam on, loss. Or I want to do a poetry slam on poetry or spoken word on death. Yeah, it could be that's the theme. That it changes over time, but it's like, okay, what is this project about? That's usually what the theme is about. Okay. And then the next thing is accountability. Now, accountability, forms of accountability varies. So we have the time frame, the goal, the team, and the accountability. The accountability forms varies, but usually for me, it's sending my work, my piece of work at the end of the week, to fellow writers. I have 2 friends that are writers, and I'll send my work to them for feedback and, just read and let me know. And also the other form of accountability is, since I'm doing daily podcasting for now, within that period of time, or even if when I do bi-weekly podcasting, within that period of time, I would talk about my work and I'll talk about my work and the experiments I'm doing, what I'm trying, and how how I'm taking on. I just generally just talk about the work, and it will be stupid of me because the goal is not to please people. The goal is to please ourselves. Yeah, and then that sounds selfish, but the goal is to keep the promises we've made to ourselves. And in helping us keeping those promises, we'll make other promises to people so that we can help ourselves keep the promises that we've made to ourselves. I hope everything I just said, it doesn't sound confusing. So it will be stupid and foolish of me because I have made promise to you that I'm going to show up and write. And then lie when I did not write that I wrote. At the end of the day, it still does not matter because I did not write, and I know that I would have lied to myself because that's the goal. Like the goal is not, it's not like, oh, I want you to know. The goal is that, okay, I might be scared of you a bit that I keep the promise with myself. Yeah. But usually the podcast will be my form of accountability. And I'll be sending my work out for feedback. And I'm starting small, and I just feel that the project is exciting, but it's not as complex and strong enough that I cannot show up. The goal is to write, the goal is to write, the goal is to write, the goal is to write. Not to edit, not to write a groundbreaking work, but the goal is to write, to experiment, to push boundaries, to test, to cook things new, to form things, to improve, to innovate. Whatever words do we have for, creativity and whatever. And then there are other examples of works you could choose. Number one is you could write short stories. You could do a 30-day short story challenge. You could do a short story anthology challenge and then give yourself maybe 3 months or 6 months to write different short stories. You could write a short story one every week, and in 6 months you would have written over 20 to 24 short stories. You could give yourself, so I talked about short stories, I talked about poetry child books. You could do a screenplay. You could write a screenplay. You could give yourself 1 month to write a screenplay, 2 months to write a screenplay. You could do a poetry slam. You could do a kind of like an album of a poetry slam. And then in that album of a poetry slam, you do it over 2 months, and then you release 10 to 12. I don't know how many songs are in an album. I really have no idea. But you create 10 to 12. Let's just assume that's what's in an album. I don't know. Probably after this episode, I will check and research how many songs are in an album. And you create that in 2-3 months or 6 months, depending on technicality of it. You research, you write your lines, you record, and you add some music. That's if you're doing poetry slam with music, and then you release on Spotify, YouTube. That's if you're making poetry video along with it, you could release the video with it. And then if you're doing just open mic, you could do the open mic performance, then film it, and then kind of like have the documentation of it. You get. So what you could be doing is maybe do write the poems and then do the open mic before a couple of friends, maybe like 3, 4, 5, 6 friends. And then, get your feedback, sometimes it's not necessarily get feedback per se, because sometimes it's more like you are testing, but then you know how to collate the data. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Sometimes comedians, they do before they go for the major big shows, they gather a bunch of audience, maybe like 50, 100. They go to these small clubs, not big. It's indoor. It's very selected, and then they test their materials. And why they start making the jokes? First, it's the first time they're testing it before people. They get, when you start testing, as you testing it, you get some ideas like, oh, I could delay it a bit, and then you see how people respond to it. You see how what makes people laugh. You see the timing, the effect, and deliberations, and all those things. You see the things, and as a master, you collect the data, and then when you go for bigger shows, you perform the jokes, and then when you perform the jokes, it's no longer a surprise piece. You've tested it before and it worked. And at least, even though it wasn't that much of an audience, like the fact that you tested it is what is important here. Because sometimes, you might believe that it was funny, but then you go out there and you perform it and people are like, don't really laugh. And you're like, well, that wasn't really funny. And you're like, but I believe this thing was going to be funny, but how come nobody found it funny? Yeah. So poetry slam, and then you could do flash fiction anthology, the same framework. Yeah, you could do how many pieces are in flash fiction anthology? And probably that would be what I'll progress on to next. You could do a poetry anthology too. You could do a collaborative novel, but I don't know. Then you have to look for a partner, and then you could do an audio story. Yeah, an audio story is quite, I wouldn't say easy per se, but you'd have to write on an audio, is it audio script or audio? I won't audio, is it audio script or audio play? And then you would have to get voice actors, or you could do the voice acting, get a couple of people, and then do the voice acting, and you edit it and perform it together, and then the thing is released over, it could be released in partnership with some TV stations. Sorry, did I say TV stations? Radio stations, or it could be released as a podcast episode, as a season, and yeah, that's a form of art where creativity comes in. But usually, it's not really the mainstream what people think, But it could be, yeah, make a really, really, really interesting story, make it an audio story, not an audiobook. I don't know if you've listened to a radio drama. Like, it's something that you really, really enjoy. There's voice effect, there is a sound effect, there is this total immersion that you really love. I remember I listened to some of them when I was growing up, and yeah, it's an interesting idea. And it's not like the mainstream, and there are other ideas too that you could try and you could, work on. So if you'd love for me to share more ideas, I'd love to know. Send me a message, and yeah, send me a message. I'd love to know about those ideas. Sorry, did I say know about those ideas? I'd love to share some more ideas. And if you have other ideas, you can share them with me. That would be great and really, really important. Okay. Usually, these goals I have set, I have found a way to make it numerical. And I found numerical usually are goals that, okay, I'm going to write 50 stories. I'm going to write 60 stories. And then I've also found a way to make it system-based, which is I'm going to write a microfiction every day. Now, it's not all forms of writing that you could say you're going to write a short story every day. If you're going to say you will write a short story every day, and if you're using the mainstream length of a short story, which is about 4,000 to 5,000, 6,000 words a day, that's really going to be challenging and demanding. It's not that it can't be done. It can be done, but it's really going to push you. And you have to be ready. Or maybe not. Okay. And then system-based, you're like, oh, I'm going to write. Your system-based is not really about the output. It's usually about showing up. You're like, okay, I'm going to write for 30 minutes every day for this and this time. I just have to show up. And then there's progress-based. And progress-based is more like, I'm going to become a better writer. I'm going to know how to edit. Usually there's really not that number you can attach to it per se, but the goal is just to become better. Yeah. It doesn't really matter the number per se, but it's just to become better. That's the goal. Yeah. And I'll be doing sprints, of course. And I'm thinking right now, I don't know how I can incorporate weekly or bi-weekly sprints into my podcast episodes for now, but I just don't know how I could possibly do that. But that would be a nice idea if I could do it. Yeah. So far, I've looked at what projects mean. I've looked at starting small. I've looked at what I chose and the criteria for my goals, my examples, and the framework I have used. And microfiction, it's really going to allow me to dabble, and it's going to give me a place to start. as a writer. And yeah, when I said micro stories is more of what I want to call it, because I'm really going to be experimenting, and I'm really going to be dabbling and moving from one form to another in the true sense of it. Yes. Once again, it's been Onyemechi Nwakonam. Thank you so much for listening to this episode.